Let's call our council work session to order. Madam Clerk, would you read the roll, please?
Mr. Jacobs? Mr. Jacobs?
He's not here.
Oh, Mr. Morrissey?
Here.
Mr. Lynn?
Here.
Mr. Amos?
Here.
Mr. Welper?
Here.
Mr. Schmidt?
Here.
And Mr.
Mr.
Powers.
Powers.
Yeah. That's fine.
Motion to approve the agenda is
Second.
proposed.
We have a motion and a second on the agenda. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. Today we're here for a GIS project discussion. Chris Youngblood, if you take it away.
Sure. Chris Youngblood, Director of IT. Council, Mayor Pro Tem, thank you for coming. Staff, thanks as well for your support. Back in November, we signed a contract with Pro West GIS out of Walker, Minnesota to come in and do a GIS assessment, look at everything that each of our departments is doing right now, and look at what their future needs are. That happened in January. They spent 5 full days here, so there was a lot of work that went on that week. Over the next couple of months, they put together that packet of information with their findings, and you'll have that in front of you. And I can also send that out via PDF, and you can read that on your iPad. Today, Kendra Scherenbrock from Pro West GIS is here to discuss those findings. And I guess with that, I will introduce Candace and take it away.
Good afternoon.
Good
Thank
afternoon.
you so much for having me here today. My name is Kendra Scherenbrock. I'm Vice President of Pro West and Associates. We are a GIS consulting firm out of Minnesota, and we have been very busy with the city the last few months, meeting with the departments, learning about how they use maps in their daily workflow. So I'm happy to be here presenting our findings to all of you here today. Just a little bit of background on Pro West. We've been around for 30 years. Our focus is local government. 60% of our clients have been with us for 15 years or more, and we work primarily with cities and counties to look at how they utiliise GIS technology and how it can be expanded, how it can benefit both staff and how the city serves the public. What we did when we were hired by the city of Waterloo was to meet with the different departments and talk with them about how they use maps. Taking that information, we can then identify gaps in how GIS and location technology, what gaps exist throughout the city, and provide recommendations on how the city can use the technology moving forward. The purpose here today is to highlight those findings, highlight gaps that were found, and highlight how the city can leverage GIS technology moving forward. So, at a high level, what is GIS? So, technically, GIS stands for Geographical Information Systems. And the more general discussion of what GIS is that GIS really answers the question, where? So think about even your personal life. The last time you took your family on a vacation to a location that you've maybe never been before. You probably maybe pulled out some hard copy maps maybe that you had, or maybe that some friends gave you. Maybe you used an iPad or Google to look up information on how you're going to get from, let's say, Waterloo to Yellowstone National Park. You used maps to figure out how you were going to get from point A to point B. You probably used maps to help you figure out what's in between point A and B. Where can I stop to get something to eat? Where can I stop to spend the night? What's around me that might be interesting for me to go see? Once you're at your destination, you're going to use maps to figure out how you get around once you're there. If you've never been to Yellowstone National Park, you're going to want to know what attractions are there. How do you get from point A to point B? What interesting things are there for you to see? So think about how many times you ask the question, where, in your personal life. You know, where am I going, right? Where's the nearest Dairy Queen? Those kinds of things. So we ask where a lot. So just in our personal lives of how we ask the question where a lot, this happens at work too. And it happens here at the city of Waterloo. Staff are asking where questions all day long in every single department. Where are the out-of-service hydrants? Where are these particular catch basins? Where are our vacant land properties located? Where are there underutilized populations for library services or other services that the city is offering? Where is asked by every department and almost every person throughout the city. GIS technology helps answer the question, where? So when you think about what is GIS, GIS is really about technology that helps you answer the question, where? So anytime you ask yourself that, know that GIS probably, and most likely, had something to do with answering that question. So we know that GIS is important, right? Because again, every department is asking where. Every staff member is asking a question of where. So here at the City of Waterloo, GIS technology exists. It exists. Our job for ProWest coming in was to take a look at where are there gaps in the technology? Because the city reached out to us for a reason, right? They knew that the potential to use the technology was there. What's encouraging is that as we met with all of the different departments and many of the folks that I met with, I see some of them here today, is that they are excited about GIS. They're excited about the ideas of utilizing this technology to help do their jobs more efficiently, more effectively. So what we did was we identified what are some of the true gaps that currently exist and how can GIS help start to close those gaps, right? One of those commonality gaps across all departments, right, was centralizing operations. And what do I mean by that? Is that right now what you see is a lot of departments doing a lot of great things, but there's data silos, right? So you might have some data over here, some data over here, some data over here. But it's not in necessarily a standardized format, and it's not necessarily in a centralized location. In addition, another gap is how departments are sharing information with each other, right? So looking at how can GIS help us share information more efficiently. An example would be the fire department having access to real-time hydrant information, for example. There's all kinds of examples of how data can be shared between departments and also out to the public. What else does GIS approach or solve here at the city? Our accessibility. A common theme when talking with the departments was how can we get access to information? Right now they might have to make a lot of phone calls, things of that nature, dig around maybe some paper maps. But GIS, having centralized, standardized data, so utilities, vacant land, census information, community development projects, Section 8A housing, the list goes on and on and on, right, of core city spatial information, right, that when it's centralized and standardized, it will help staff access that information. So imagine, just like you might use a Google search to search for Yellowstone National Park and all of the things that I can do there and see there, search in the city for data that's important to you and what you need to do. Search for parks, search for vacant lands, search for stormwater information. And what all exists here at the city that's going to help me do my job by searching and making that data more accessible. Across all departments, these were common themes: centralizing data, standardizing data, putting it in a format that's going to allow us to share between departments and out to the public, as well as make it more accessible for people. GIS is an integrating technology. What I mean by that is that oftentimes when you look at a map and you see a parcel of land and you see an aerial photo and you see utilities, there's more information behind what you see on a map. There are permits and inspections and maintenance and document imaging with as-built and photos and things of that nature that help tell a story of those features that you see on a map. So GIS is used by cities across the country to start to integrate other business systems. So when someone goes to a map and they start looking at utilities or land, they can start to drill in and access other systems. It's another way for them to access what are the permits for this particular area, what are the building photos for this particular area, so on and so forth. What are the most recent permits? All of these things are examples of how GIS can start to integrate other business systems and leverage other business systems that the city has already invested in. GIS also addresses a gap in mobile technology. GIS can be utilized, maps can be utilized both at your desk as well as in the field. Almost all departments gave examples of how beneficial would it be if I had a tablet or a smartphone out in the field, and if somebody was wanting to know about projects that were happening in my neighborhood, and when are those going to be happening, and how is that going to benefit me as a citizen, to be able to pull up that map in real time, to be able to communicate with the citizens more efficiently. That's very powerful. And to know that when they look at those maps, that they're looking at current and accurate information and maybe not a static, outdated copy of something that they're not quite sure about. So when you centralize and you standardize your data, you start to be able to tell a story of your community more efficiently. Having access to mobile information out in the field is very powerful and was a theme across all departments. Streamlining field operations for staff that are out in the field doing sidewalk inventories or inspections, being able to utilize mobile technology to enter that information in the field while they're standing there, and have that information automatically fed back to the office for someone who needs to maybe assign a work task to somebody else. Or maybe that information needs to be digested and analyzed for a report that somebody's working on. Streamlining field operations, accessing data in real time out in the field are all things that GIS technology brings the city. So GIS is scalable. And what that means is that as the city grows and changes, GIS technology can scale along with the city. It's not a static thing like any technology. It changes, it grows. But the city will continue to grow and have different needs. And GIS grows and scales with the city. There's lots of different options for how GIS is used. It's not a one-time type of thing. It's something that will evolve as the city evolves. So let me show you some examples of how GIS technology can start to change how the city communicates with each other and also with the public. So this is an example of a public-facing community planning application, right? So you see here that we have different projects listed that are going on here at the city. This might be something that you put out, right, for folks to be able to click on those projects. It's interactive. They can look at aerial photos. They can see information about that particular project that's going on. You'll have to excuse me, our staff person that puts together our demos is really excited, and also has a really good sense of humor, so you'll see some fun comments in there. But this is an example of being able to communicate projects that are going on at the city. People can like what's going on. They can enter in comments if they wish. And you can start to see the feedback that people are providing throughout the community. Now, this becomes a very powerful tool to be able to see, here's everything that's going on at the city. Internally, you can start to take a look at all the different projects that different departments are doing. Engineering, community development, planning. Imagine if everyone had their projects on a map and could collaborate on different types of projects throughout the city. This is one example of a public-facing solution. Now, how does city staff manage that data? Well, if there's a new project, someone at the city could come into their map, they can add a new project, and you can start to enter in information about that project. Pretty easy. It's all configurable. Imagine if every department had access to this to be able to manage their own authoritative data. That's a very powerful tool. Now, some departments are already doing that with some of their desktop GIS, engineering, and waterworks. Lots of different staff throughout different departments are utilizing some desktop GIS to plot out some information. But GIS becomes very powerful when you can create simple, task-driven solutions that mean something. So they can come in, enter in information about this particular project. They can upload photos about it, right? They click save. And there's a new project that's been added. GIS can be very simple when you have specific tasks that you need to complete. Communicating with citizens can go a step further, right? Example of a public-facing solution that allows citizens to be able to enter in information about issues that might be going on throughout the city, road issues, snow, ice, things of that nature. Being able to identify issues that are occurring and communicate those back to the city. Code violations. Right, an example of taking an address, plotting it on the map, and taking a look at where are the violations occurring. There's a lot of data here at the city that has an address or an intersection associated with it. That means GIS. That means you can view that information spatially. So here's an example of a GIS map, public-facing map gallery for a client that we recently worked with. You can see here that they have information here, all kinds of applications. They have applications to do sales comparisons, print off map books, look at foreclosures, look at real-time elections, come in here and look at real estate-based applications, mailing notifications, integration in with floodplain inquiries. Is my property within the floodplain or not? Right. Medication drop boxes, county recreation. Where are all the recreation opportunities? Right. Being able to take a look at different zoning projects that are going on. So you can see that there's a lot of information out here. I can search for information instead of hunting around for it. Show me all the data and applications that you have that have to do with sales. I search for it. I enter in a keyword to find it. And imagine how powerful that capability would be if the city had centralized, standardized data that they could enter in keywords, enter in searches, and bring up those applications and bring up that data that's associated with those keywords. Again, very, very, very powerful stuff. So, a few return on investment statistics from some cities around here. Cedar Rapids, Iowa implemented a one-call ticket application back in 2012 utilizing GIS that allows locators that are out facilitating call before you dig requests to have an iPad, and there's a point that pops up on a map every single time a call before you dig locate comes through. So if somebody's going to be building in their front yard or something of that nature. They use GIS to streamline that one-call ticket process. They saved 3,500 hours, man-hours in 1 year. That's almost 2 full-time equivalents in 1 year implementing one GIS-based application. St. Cloud, they utilize GIS to manage all of their asset management, all of their maintenance, all of their inspections. And after a couple years of centralizing and standardizing their data and training staff, they got to the point where at the end of the year, they click a button and it generates and quantifies all of the different maintenance projects that they did throughout the year. How many man hours, how much did it cost? Pretty powerful. Their planning department estimated that by being able to access census information, in addition to other authoritative city data sets, that they saved $40,000 just on one planning project alone, being able to have access to the data that they needed. Sioux Falls, when they implemented their one-call ticket management system, utilizing GIS, they estimated that they saved $27,000 in 3 months. So pretty powerful stuff. But how much does it cost? Right. So we're going to talk a little bit about budgeting and things that the city needs to consider moving forward. So we know what GIS is. We know that it can do a lot for us, and there's lots of different ways to expand the technology at the city. So there's a company, it's called Esri, E-S-R-I. There is a glossary in the report as well that explains some of the common acronyms. Esri is the Microsoft of GIS technology. 90% of all government agencies in the US utilize Esri technology for their mapping platform. The city of Waterloo currently has some of that software here. However, in order to centralize, standardize data, start to look at closing the gap on data accessibility, system integration, mobile technology, things that we talked about here today, there's software licensing involved. So on page 78 in this report, talks about different licensing options. There's several different implementation plans, phases, options that are listed in here. There's lots of different ways that the city can go. One of the most important decisions that the city will have to make moving forward is looking at software licensing. Esri has what is called an enterprise agreement. What is that? An enterprise agreement allows the city access to unlimited or near unlimited GIS technology. It's a one-time fee. It is based on population. When you break the enterprise licensing down, it comes out to be anywhere from $500 to $100 per person per year to access unlimited amounts of mapping capability throughout the city. It's a very overall affordable way to get maps in the hands of users across the city so that they can start to answer those where questions. There's also, moving forward, you also have the capability of purchasing software piecemeal or a la carte, so to speak. So the enterprise agreement is a single fee that's paid every year, and you get unlimited or near unlimited software. But you can also purchase software, and you can grow by purchasing it individually. Over time, purchasing it a la carte, over time, that will cost more. The consolidated annual fee for licensing is by far the most economical moving forward. The other key decision for implementing a GIS is staffing. Currently, there's not a dedicated GIS person here at the city, so staffing is a consideration. The city of St. Cloud, which is about the same population as Waterloo, they have never hired a GIS person. They're utilizing the technology to empower their departments to manage their authoritative data. They've been doing that for 14 years. They're working on getting a person, but staffing is a consideration for the city moving forward. GIS is big. There's a lot that goes on to manage it. There's infrastructure, servers, there's software, there's training, there's solutions like the mapping solutions that I showed you. So there's a lot that goes into it. So software licensing and staffing are certainly a strong consideration that the city is going to have to weigh. The other item on here is consulting services for implementing and providing direction, moving forward, those types of things. So I want to make sure that there's enough time for questions moving forward. There's a bright future here at the city. It was really great being here for a week. I cannot stress enough how open all of the departments were. Department heads, staff that were involved in all of those meetings were absolutely fantastic. And I've been at ProWest for 15 years. I've done a lot of these. And it was a really great experience. I felt like we got a lot of really great information from everybody. And so everybody should feel really good about that. So I think at this point, I'd like to open up the floor for any questions or clarifications. I realize that for many of you, this might be new, a new concept, a new thing. As I've told Chris and Ben, ProWest, when one of our mottos is once a client, always a client. We haven't had 60% of our clients for 15 years just because. So the offer is certainly on the table to provide follow-up information, follow-up presentations, clarifications, because there's nothing that ProWest wants more than to make sure that the city makes well-informed decisions on how you move forward.
Thank you. Council, questions?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr.
I have a couple questions. So you looked at our city. Where are we in percentile? We 5%, 10%, 90%? Where are we in the GIS implementation stage? What would you guess? We halfway there, or quarter, 10%?
I'd say you're probably about a quarter of the way there.
If we wanted to go to halfway there, what would it cost us?
Well,
Couple $100,000?
I would say so, yes.
Then do we have to buy hardware besides all this stuff?
So there is hardware involved, and there's a couple different ways that the city can move forward with hardware. You do have some existing hardware that would work. We would recommend that some of the hardware be purchased to be dedicated for GIS for performance reasons. But there's certainly existing hardware that could be utilized.
And what would that cost us to buy the hardware to get to the 50%, halfway there level, about?
As she said, we have quite a few things in place with our virtualized network, so we're able to bring up the virtual servers that are needed to run it. We're probably going to be looking at adding, because of the additional data needs, we would need storage. So, it may be 30,000, maybe 50, probably somewhere in there would be a fair amount. We do have some licensing with their SQL software. It's the database software that it runs on. There's some costs there. Those are probably between $7,500 and $15,000, just depending on to what extent we purchase of licensing.
And as the consultant, we're gonna, if we decide to do this, we obviously can't do it 100% in a week. What would be the plan? 5-year, 10-year, to get to a fully functional GIS system?
So what we've outlined is a 3-year plan.
Okay.
Sometimes you can do it in 2 years, but you're looking at, on average, 2 to 3 years.
And the 3-year plan gets us to 100%.
Correct.
And now, okay, so go back, how much is the 3-year plan? You said a couple hundred for the 50%, 400,000?
I would say that depending on how you would move forward with staffing, I think that a 3-year plan would definitely be under 300 grand. Yeah.
And as far as the staff person, I know the Waterworks has a GIS specialist.
Yep.
Would that position be capable of managing the GIS system, or is it kind of an overwhelming job for the whole city?
That would be an overwhelming job.
So you need a dedicated GIS person?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And I
Anyone
guess I
else?
would just want to comment that, we've definitely got a lot of decisions to make. This is just step one in assessing what we have and giving us some direction. Where we go from here, like I said, we've got a lot of work to do to figure that out and then bring that back to you guys to, approve or, give us some more direction at that point. What we really wanted to do tonight was educate and give you guys information, let you know what we're looking at, why it's important to move forward with this.
Well, I will make one comment, because I used to work for the state, Iowa DOT, and of course, we had that system, and it's unbelievably efficient to be able to go to a parcel of land and get the acquisition documents, the surveys, the permits, everything in history about that piece without going to the courthouse and spending, days looking up that stuff. And I can see if we implemented it, and we should implement it, it would really be a game changer for the city of Waterloo. We'd kind of get into the 21st, pushing the 22nd century.
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Morrissey?
Yeah, Chris, is any of this budgeted, or is there any money in this year's remaining budget for the few months? Or is there anything that is in next year's budget that you had figured some dollars in for something like this?
We do have some budgeted for the upcoming fiscal year. There's possibly some remaining, I know we're getting down to the end, possibly for some additional consulting services to help us get going. And then we have budgeted some dollars for some of this for next year. Unfortunately, timing-wise, I wish we were about 6 months ahead of where we were. It would have helped with the budgeting process. So we do realize that we probably can't get everything we want in the upcoming year. It's probably going to take a couple of years to get there.
Thanks.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Schmidt?
So Chris, going back to Councilman Lynn's comment about the waterworks, is that a completely separate system and there'd be no redundancy or anything here with what we're looking at doing and what they've done already, or have you talked to them?
The waterworks was very much involved in this, as were all the departments. as Candace had stated, things are sort of siloed right now where they have their data, engineering has theirs, waste management has theirs. What we're really looking to do is to bring it all together and centralize it so that it makes it a lot easier from an administrative point of view to share that data. So if planning needs it, if community development needs it, if traffic needs it, we're able to grant access to that information for maybe there's something that traffic needs. They need information about hydrants. I don't know. Just what we really were hoping to do is really centralize things and get away from those data silos that we currently have.
And then do you have any idea where either the county or Cedar Falls is at in this whole area?
I would say that Cedar Falls is slightly ahead of us. They did a similar assessment about a year and a half ago. So they're working towards a lot of the things that we're hoping to do. As far as the county goes, they have some GIS things, but I don't know that there's necessarily any real active things. We do get some maps from them, so there's some sharing that goes on currently. Some of the things in the project or the assessment that they put together talk about ways to maybe share that data a little bit more efficiently. Is that accurate?
Yeah. There's definitely ways for the city of Waterloo to collaborate with Cedar Falls and county more tightly, right, moving forward in how data is shared.
Are either one of those entities working with you, or are they working with another vendor, or how are they proceeding, do you know?
Cedar Falls was working with another vendor, and I don't know that the county they're self-sufficient at this point. So.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I got a question. You talked about real time and you talked about mapping. Is there overlays? Can you do an overlay? So you've got a city map here of an area that there's an event going on real time. Can you overlay where the water mains are, where the sewer system is, what's inside that building in terms of hazardous materials or whatever? So all of that stuff could be just an overlay flop of what's in a building, then take that off and look at something else. So can that be done?
Yes, sir.
Real time? Okay.
Real time, yes.
All right.
Anyone else? Hearing none. Candace, thank you for
Yeah.
today, and Chris as well. And I'm sure as we pursue this, we'll be talking more in regards to this. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Motion adjourned.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on adjournment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. We need to call the Finance Committee to order. Madam Clerk, would you read the roll, please?
Mr. Jacobs? Here. Mr. Powers?
Here.
Mr. Welper?
Here.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to move the approval of the agenda and the minutes of April 2017 as proposed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the minutes. Questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. Travel requests, we only have two today.
Mayor Pro Tem, if I could, I'll take those. Bob Osgood, Chief Plumbing Inspector, to attend a meeting, the IAPMO 88th Annual Education and Business Conference, Iowa Association of Plumbing and Mechanical Officials, destination in Anchorage, Alaska, date September 24 through the 29th, amount not to exceed $575. Captain Mollis, attend the meetings. Public Information Officer Training Conference, destination is Aurora, Colorado. Date May 7th through the 10th, and the amount not to exceed $1,773.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the two travel requests. Any questions or discussion on either of those items? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. Pre-auths.
Pre-auths to expend over $1,000. Airport, $10,000. Staff's requesting authorization to spend $10,000 for the completion of a leakage analysis and true market study for the benefit of Waterloo's Air Service Development Plan. Airport also $8,000. Staff's requesting to spend $8,000 for the lease of mowing equipment for the 2017 mowing season at Waterloo Regional Airport via the one and only bid award. Cultural and Arts, $4,500 plus $600 shipping and handling for 4 limestone benches for Lou Henry Hoover Sculpture Park. Culture and Arts, $5,000, 2017 blanket authorization of food purchases. Culture and Arts, $5,000, 2017 blanket authorization for collection conservation of the permanent collection artwork. Central Garage, $2,811, $200 shipping and handling for a liftgate for truck 261614, includes additional $600 for installation, which was not included in the original bid. Leisure Services, $22,288.95 for repair and replacement parts for downtown docks. Leisure Services, $10,089.63 plus $145 for shipping and handling. Equipment for a concession stand at Riverfront Stadium Sports Park, Exchange Park, which has been amended to include shipping. Leisure Services, $2,698. Painting of Gates Park Golf Course Equipment Storage Building. Leisure Services, $2,306.20. For the male and female lifeguard suits for 2017 outdoor pool staff, as well as needed whistles and breakaway lanyards. MIS, $4,277.55 for Dell Precision's workstations and displays for GIS. And Police, $3,573.43 to repair car number 407, which was damaged in a car accident on 2/22/17.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the pre-auths. Any questions on any of those items?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Bauer.
For the Cultural and Arts, on this Hoover project, it's $5,100. Is that in partnership with the schools, or are we just front-loading this, or can you give me a little more information on that, please?
Sure, Kent Jekyll, Cultural and Arts. The Lou Henry Hoover Sculpture Park is located right across from the Grout Museums. It's a public park that's in recognition of Lou Henry Hoover's birthplace, which was located on that site. It's a part of a larger project, which has been ongoing for a number of years and was recently completed. The commissioning of original artwork, 2 bronze sculptures, as well as interpretive kiosks. There are currently 4 benches in the central portion of the park. However, the flanking areas where the sculptures are located currently do not have benches, and we did receive $4,000 to date to help fund this, and there may be some more money coming in as well to offset these costs.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
Sure.
Kent, could we talk about also the $5,000 for food?
Sure, that's an authorization up to $5,000. I don't believe any year we ever spend really close to that amount. However, that allows us to purchase food related to programs and so forth. So for instance, we offer a Breakfast with Santa program for kids and families, and as part of that event, there is a breakfast meal. We also do a breakfast with the Easter Bunny. When we have conferences and that type of thing that have meals associated with them as part of the registration fees, this covers those expenses that are offset with those revenues.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. We have 3 budget line item amendments, which are on file at the city clerk's office. And the bills payment this week. $2,394,372.15. That's 2,394,372.15.
Second.
Motion is second, the bills payment. Any questions on that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion passes.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I move for adjournment.
Second.
We have motion and second on adjournment. All in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Let's call our Waterloo City Council meeting to order. Today is April 24th, 2017. I'm Councilman Welper, filling in for Mayor Hart, who was out of the office this week. So with that, Madam Clerk, we need a roll call, and Jerome Amos will be via telephone this evening.
Mr. Jacobs?
Here.
Mr. Morrissey?
Here.
Mr. Powers?
Here.
Mr. Lynn?
Here.
Mr. Amos?
Here.
Mr. Schmidt?
Here.
Mr. Welper?
Here. Now, if you would, please, let's all stand, those who are able, for just a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. Tonight, the pledge will be led by Bruce Jacobs, Ward 2 Council member.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I need someone to approve the,
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
yes,
make a motion to approve the agenda as proposed and also the minutes of the April 17th, 2017 regular session as proposed.
Second.
we have a motion and a second on the agenda. Any questions or discussion on that, gentlemen?
Sure.
Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. We have two proclamations this evening. The first one here is Arbor Week, and I believe Paul Hudding is going to be accepting that.
Yes. Oh, wonderful. It's a lapel pin. Yeah, I'm not going to try to pin you tonight.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to read the proclamation first of all, and I've already warned Paul that I've asked him to address the situation that we hear people asking all the time about ash trees being cut down. Is the city going to be replacing them? So I've asked Paul to address that for the proclamation. Indicating you can't hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can.
Yes?
We cannot.
How about
Depends on
that?
who you talk to, right?
Still not? Okay. We'll do this. The proclamation reads, trees provide a pleasing environment in Waterloo for the benefit of our residents and visitors, contributing greatly to our positive image. And the optimum reforestation of Waterloo will require public participation and cooperation, resulting in an attractive community. And the management of trees increases the benefits to our community through planning, planting, and maintenance, timely removal and replacement. And the Iowa legislature has designated the last Friday in April as Arbor Day throughout Iowa. Now therefore, I, Quentin Hart, Mayor of the City of Waterloo, Iowa, do hereby proclaim the week of April 23rd to the 29th, 2017 as Arbor Week in Waterloo, Iowa, and encourage all citizens of Waterloo to celebrate this occasion and beauty of our city by planting a tree. Go for it.
Thank you, sir. Do I get that?
Yes, you do.
Thank you. I want to thank the mayor and the council once again this year for helping us receive Tree City USA Award. This is the 33rd year consecutively that we've received this award, and we receive it due to the commitment of the mayor, this council, and previous leadership. 232 trees were planted this spring. 55 at Airport Boulevard, 23 at C.A. Morris Park, 36 at Bontrager Park, 118 at Irv Warren Golf Course, and we'll have some more to come as some schools do some Arbor Day plantings. So 232 trees, that's a lot of trees. However, you did mention that we've lost a few trees too. We've been removing ash trees and actually are losing them at a lot faster rate than we're replanting them, but we're working on that. The funding for these trees that I just mentioned come from a variety of sources, but Mid-American Energy has a Trees Please program that they grant us considerable funds each year. They also sponsor the Plant Some Shade program, and May 4th is our delivery date, or pickup date, I should say, for the reduced price trees that we sell to Mid-American customers. Great replacement trees for the ash trees that we're losing. We also have received a grant from the Northeast Iowa Community Foundation, Green Scene, and revenue from sale of some ash logs, a little over $7,700 from logs that we sold from Irv Warren Golf Course. And then we do have some money the council has set aside through bond money and a little bit in our general fund operating budget. But to get to your question, are we replacing the trees? We cannot replace them as quickly as they're going down, but we are recommending that homeowners seriously consider purchasing a tree and placing it in the area between the sidewalk and street, in the street right away. If you're interested in doing that, just contact our office at 291-4370. We can guide you. Todd Deerfield is our city forester. He can guide you through the very simple permitting process and guide you to select the proper tree for the site. We'll continue to look for grant opportunities and try to get as many trees replaced as we can. Thank you.
Very good. Thanks, Paul. Our next proclamation here is Historic Preservation Month. Is there some, Ed, are you representing the commission? Very good. Let's see. The proclamation reads, Historic preservation is an effective tool for economic development, tourism promotion, neighborhood revitalization, fostering local pride, and maintaining overall community character while enhancing livability, and historic preservation can benefit Americans of all ages, walks of life, and ethnic backgrounds in communities, and it is important to celebrate the role of history in our lives and contributions by dedicated individuals in helping to preserve the tangible aspects of the heritage that has shaped us as people. The Waterloo Historic Preservation Commission will be holding its annual celebration of all those who have made a difference in Waterloo preservation over the last year on May 4th. Waterloo currently has 24 National Register listings and 3 historic districts, plus the hotel president pending the federal level. And now, therefore, I, Quentin Hart, the mayor of the city of Waterloo, Iowa, do hereby proclaim the month of May as Historic Preservation Month. Should I say a few words, Ed?
I'll try and say a few words. I think you took up most of my points that I would point out. But yes, historic preservation is a necessary thing for communities like Waterloo because of the rich culture that we have and rich building stock that we do have here in town. There are many examples currently going on right now. Single Speed Brewery for one, KWWL building, they're all very visible projects that are benefiting from historic tax credits. So please, council, hopefully we can make it to our May 4th ceremony for celebrating those projects that we deem this year as qualifying for an award. So thank you very much again.
Yeah, pretty good. Thank you. Here. Okay, now it's time for oral presentations. We did have someone call in, Aaron Roberts. Are you here?
Yes, my name is Aaron Roberts. I live at 411 Almond Street. I'm here on concerns that I addressed April 3rd of 2017, and I didn't get finished, and I had talked to Mayor Hart, and we were supposed to have been in contact with some of my concerns, and I hadn't heard back from him, so I wanted to finish up. What I was touching on, I said, was corruption and not good. This is an affidavit in support of an involuntary committal, and in this is a pack of lies that had me put in a psychiatric facility for 5 days, 6 months of outpatient based on lies. And this shouldn't happen in our city, and we need to make sure it doesn't happen again. In that affidavit, Police Chief Dan Tracco went on to say that I exhibited some very troubling concerns, behavior, signs that can only be likened to seriously mental impairment, paranoia, fake delusions is what the word is. And he feels that a conspiracy is targeting me, myself, as well as my children. And this has been going on, as I described last time, based on case 9914612 out of Urbandale, Iowa. So when I went to the police chief and mayor, I went with concerns and looking to get help. Everyone that I mentioned in our meeting was flipped against me. The people that I said that the Urbandale police chief didn't do what he was supposed to do. He went on to write in his email to the chief, "We are familiar with Roberts and his delusions. warned him to stop bothering his old girlfriend. He refers to his old girlfriend's daughter as his daughter, but there is no blood relationship, and warned him to stay away. In the sexual assault that happened, I was the father that was referred to, and it's not my biological daughter, but I raised her from 4 months old. And from 4 months to 25 years old, we were in communication. The last 5 years, she's told me that they were going to make it worse on her if she continued to communicate with me. So we haven't spoken. These are not delusions, and they shouldn't be flipped like that on me to satisfy, I don't know who it is to have me put in a psychiatric setting. It's real sad what has happened, and the reason I'm asking the mayor and city council to look into it, because this corruption is going on, and 2 of the people that participated in it are still active in this city. That date was from the 13th when, that was in the emails that he was receiving, which was January 13th of 2013. On January of 2013, which would have been, I want to say the 1st of January, I met with Dave Zollihofer about my concerns about corruption in the city of Waterloo. He told me to make an appointment with the mayor, which I did. That didn't turn out good. On February 3rd, and I'm going back in time, you'd have to refer back to the April 3rd meeting to see what I'm talking about. February 3rd of 2008, there was a case 2008-1298 where police officers, and there's a report enclosed there that will show that I'm not the violent person that the same Officer Bram said I was, crazy and violent. The terms that they're used to do what they've done to me is very dangerous, because I'm a victim and an advocate for my children who have been victimized. November 7th of 2006, 7 years, 11 months prior to the meeting with the police chief, Thomas Jennings, then police chief, said in his letter dated November 13, 2006, it dealt with a variety of issues, including harassment threats mentioned in Waterloo case W9-63499. That was a case back then where I was complaining about threat, intimidation on myself. June 21st of 99, case 9914612, Urbandale, Iowa. Lieutenant Rob Johansson questioned me about the $500,000 mentioned during the assault. What happened in the assault, a person assaulted my daughter, sexually assaulted her, and said, tell your father the $500,000 is no longer his. In that was a $250,000 life insurance policy for optional life insurance policy for salaried employees through John Deere Life Insurance Company out of Jacksonville, Illinois. I'm again out of time, and I want to make this the last time I come down, but what I'm looking for the city to do, the city council and the mayor, is to investigate what is going on with this, because I'm still getting threatening messages, and this did happen. And in the package that I gave you something referring to the racketeering charge in Baltimore, Maryland. We have something very similar to that going on here, whether we want to believe it or not. If it can happen in a big city, it can happen here, and we need to get this addressed. One other concern, so I don't have to come back. I have no intentions, as one of the persons said that had me committed, said that they thought I was going to run down and shoot up City Hall. My intentions is to walk down and run City Hall with this ink pen, because you owe. And what I want you to do is not pay me, but I want you to make sure that your employees are doing their jobs. Could you please do that? This needs to be looked into.
Thank you, Mr. Robert. Is there anyone else?
Hi, Mayor, wherever you're at, in City Council, Jim Chapman, 224 Birch. I believe it was brought up last week about we're going to revise the television area in the council chamber, and we're going to use bond money. I guess my question is, why can't we use the franchise fee money we're already paying to Mediacom? Anybody got any answers for that?
You want to try that?
Michelle Wiedner, Chief Financial Officer. The franchise fee is primarily used for operating expenses, and that would be general fund salaries such as police and fire. We don't have another way to fund those. We do have another way to fund capital items, and that's why that's what's being chosen.
I guess that answered my question. And I got one more. Ron, I think you said in the meeting, our last neighborhood association meeting, you were going to look into about me getting a count that I asked for Park Avenue Bridge. And I was told I had to go down and fill out a whole bunch of paperwork to get a count. I asked for it. That should be transparent. Did you ever?
I will look into that, Jim. I haven't had a chance to do that.
All right. Thank you very much.
You bet. Anyone else?
John Sherbin, 1715 Robin Road. I was looking at the website the other day, and I discovered a little fact that I haven't heard anything about. Is evidently we're combining departments now, and my question being, if we had 2 or 3 departments combined before, and as the people retired or quit, moved on, we separated them because it was a work overload. Now we're going to put the street department with 2 more, which I understand are going to be the parking, the parking and the dog thing. That'll put at least about 5 departments together under one head. Is there somebody retiring, or, this is a little bit of information that sort of never got out, and it's in several different places. Our job application for the street department asks and states that everybody be qualified, and that's 7 different things. If we were going to save a nickel, we're going to lose a lot more than that, because I just can't fathom somebody that's capable of running 7 different departments when we had problems with just what we had. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Anyone else?
David Dreyer, 3145 West 4th Street. On April 19th, I emailed the mayor and all the councilmen. There was an article in the paper that was quite interesting, as the subject of cameras for public safety has been brought up before. It seems, as per the article, red light violations are more important than gunfire. Could this be because an arrest made, money goes out, where a citation issued, money comes in? I recall when safety cameras were discussed before, 4 councilmen, one of whom retired from a public safety job, voted against cameras, aka public safety. The article states, we know of at least 13 intersections that account for the major portion of the violations. As stated, 200 violations. So were these 200 citations sent, and if cameras were installed, will that number greatly increase, justifying the expense of the cameras? Rumor has it there are a large number of tickets issued over parking that are not being paid. So would this happen here also? An answer I hear on that issue is it costs more to pursue than it's worth doing. When speaking of the $200,000 to $500,000, why does it only mention cops and firefighters? I recall statements about 12,000 dispatches with 200, I think, fires. Since we couldn't tap the sacred cow, TIF, when we were talking about the Martin Road TIF, to get cameras in high crime areas, I have to agree with Mr. Lind, if this is done, to use the revenue to expand the number of cameras, but in high crime areas. My understanding of Dubuque's cameras is they are helping reduce and solve crime. Another point during the previous discussion of cameras was we don't have the fiber optics to support good cameras. Have we suddenly got fiber optics? Or will the upfront thousands of dollars have to be paid by a bond, aka taxpayers, to make it worth putting the cameras in? I see that much more information is needed before we jump on the wagon, such as total cost and how this will be paid for. If bonding is needed, then the revenue goes to repay only the cost of the cameras. that bond before another camera, police officer or firefighter is considered. Mr. Power stated new revenue also could help lower property taxes. However, until we see it as a profit, all of those expenses should be paid. Lastly, Mr. Trucca mentioned the legislature is possibly going to support cameras. However, until they do, planning and not doing it in any way should be the effort. How much has Cedar Rapids spent in legal fees fighting the state? Remember Sunnyside South. Thank you. And I have not received an answer from Mr. Hart yet.
I can tell you that basically the chief is just investigating the possibility of doing this right now, and I believe there was no cost to the city. Was that correct, Mr. Trucca? Yeah.
And I must clarify, I'm not picking on anybody, especially Mr. Trucca. He's doing a good job. I just wonder why we couldn't put them in high crime areas as opposed to worrying about whether we can get a red light camera and a ticket issued. Thank you.
Good evening, Todd Obadall, 124 Amity Drive. I know this time is for items not on the agenda, and that's what I'm going to speak to. There is an item on the agenda about Chapter 7 parking residential areas ordinance from Title 6. It says it's a new chapter, which means there isn't one in effect right now. We know about this because we can't cite any parking violations, we can't give tickets, and the city is not getting revenue from this because there's no controlling legal authority to do so. So it's on the agenda tonight to perhaps correct that. What is part of Chapter 7 in Title 6 is the city definition of driveways and driveway extensions. There has not been a city definition of driveways or driveway extensions since October of 2016, which means the city hasn't had any authority to regulate driveways or driveway extensions. The city has been taking money for permits and easements and requiring citizens to construct driveways in accordance with an ordinance that doesn't exist. I did stand here on a couple occasions in the past advocating for Miss Dina Jolly and her property at 1155 Hawthorne. I came down to the city hall a couple weeks ago with Mr. Curtis, who also lives at that address, and as I was trying to see about getting a new application in before the proposed ordinances increased the depth of concrete from 5 inches to 6 inches, which might have required them to tear out their 5 inches and put in the 6 inches. I was trying to look up the ordinance online. I couldn't find it, and Mr. Schroeder was kind enough to pass me the old ordinance and the proposed ordinance. This is what I had as reference before, not realizing that there was no ordinance in effect. Ms. Jolly and Mr. Curtis were characterized as people that wanted to play outside the rules, not follow the law. The truth of the matter is there was no law to be followed. That the decision by the Planning and Zoning Commission not to allow them to put in their driveway, they had no basis to do that whatsoever by law. Their judgment was deferred to by this body, so we deferred to the judgment of the volunteers on the Planning and Zoning Board, and they didn't have any authority to give an up or down comment one way or the other, and neither did the City Council. I am asking for the refunding of Ms. Jolly's $100 for her encroachment agreement that was paid to this city on November 3rd, when there was no ordinance in effect. There was no governing ordinance regulating the construction of driveways. And I ask for this city to play by the rules, to enforce laws passed by this body, and not capriciously tell citizens what they can and cannot do. Thank you.
Anyone else? Second time?
Mr. Welper, I make a motion to file oral comments.
Second. We have a motion, a second, to receive and file oral comments. Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. Consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I would move for approval of the consent agenda, items 1 through 3, including the bills payment today of $2,394,372.15. 2,394,372.15.
Second.
A motion, a second on the consent agenda. Questions?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr.
I have
Lynn.
one question on number 1A4. We're, by that resolution, we are not approving the CIP, are we? That's not to say we're concurring with the current CIP.
Michelle Wiegner, Chief Financial Officer. While that doesn't say that you're approving the capital improvements program, that's a 5-year program, this is, and there is about a 19-page attachment, that we are approving the project allocations that we're going to use for this year's bond issue.
Okay, then, let's consider that number 4 separately.
Okay, we can certainly do that. Any other items? Okay, we want to approve the consent agenda, leaving out item 1A4. With that, Madam Clerk, I need a roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
If you're going to do that, I would request that you also pull out number 5, resolution setting the dates of public hearing, because the classifications motion, I've been advised by our bond attorney, should be approved prior to approving the next one.
So you're saying 4 and 5?
Yes, please.
Okay. We're going to pull 4 and 5 out of consent agenda and vote on them separately. Okay? With that, Madam Clerk, I need a roll call, please.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mr. Powers?
Yes.
Mr. Lynn?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Okay, now we'll take items 4 and 5 on the consent agenda. Mr. Lind?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, so I have a couple questions. The Martin Road tax increment amount of $1.8 million, what's that for? Why do we bond that much money for Martin Road?
Noel Anderson, Community Planning Development Director. As you may recall, we have a agreement in place with Deer Creek Development for the provision of infrastructure out there over on about 100 acres of land. As part of that, last year we did an amendment to that agreement to have him do the last remaining portions of that infrastructure out there for the full build-out of the remaining land. Generally, we're located around the Greyhound Park site, and we did agree to pay him $1.8 million in this fiscal year for that last portion of the infrastructure. Looking at the models for interest accrued and all that, it seemed to be the best way to utilize the funding.
Okay. And then I have another question while you're up there on project number 124. It says 4th Street Bridge canopy, $40,000. I thought we just allocated $1.5 million for the 4th Street Bridge canopy repair. Why do we have another $40,000 in it, in the CIP for 2018?
I think we're up to 1.7.
I believe it was for the option that was chosen for the removal of the windows, needed some additional funding for the alternative chosen.
It was? Okay, I want to make a motion to amend. I'm going to take project number 248, which is $20,000, and move it to project 149, which is tasers for the police department. I think the police department deserves and desperately needs to get replacement for many of their tasers. And this would go a long way to help them achieve that goal. The 248 is I think a sidewalk infill project, and we can easily put that off for a year to protect our police officers. So anyway, I make that motion to amend.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to amend item.
So 248, project number 248, 20,000 goes to project 149. So in other words, we increase 149 by $20,000.
Mr. Chairman?
There's discussion on that, Mr. Morrissey.
Well, I object to that amendment. Item 248, if it has to do with the $20,000 infill, those are sidewalk areas that are part of a program to try to make it safer for kids to walk to school. And I don't know why we'd want to take money away from that kind of program. Not that I don't believe that the Waterloo Police Department is a worthy place for any money to go, but in this kind of program, the Complete Streets, if you looked at it, they had requested $220,000, and they're getting $20,000. And if they've requested money for years, for several years, at being on that Complete Street Advisory Committee, and this is the first time that they're getting some of that money for a program like that. So Councilman, I understand what you're saying, but I'm opposed to taking money out of that program for that kind of infill for kids walking to school.
Okay, anyone else?
Could somebody tell us where that infill section's at?
Eric, do you know where the infill section is?
So we have any idea whether it's near any schools?
Apparently, we don't know exactly where the location is.
So we don't know
Mr.
that.
Chairman, my understanding that one of the areas is up there by Hoover, off of Park Road, the Park Road area up in there.
Okay. Apparently, no one knows exactly where it's at. Anyone else need to address this?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, security is a big concern for the folks in my ward. And anything we can do to support our police, I think we've done as council members, and I think we will continue to do that. And I think that would Councilman Lynn's proposal would have merit and have great support.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, we need a roll call on the amendment only. Okay? Madam Clerk.
Excuse me. Mr. Powers?
No.
Mr. Lind?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
No.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
No.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
And Mr. Morrissey?
No.
Okay, the amendment fails. Now we need to go back and vote on 4 and 5.
Mr. Chairman, one of the issues that I have with this is that the capital improvement project, I feel like the council has sort of been left out of this. I thought we were going to have meetings and then more meetings so we could get more in-depth with this, especially from not just the beginning, which we weren't involved, I don't believe whatsoever, but all the way through now, and then I see this on the agenda tonight. Not that I don't understand that there are some deadlines and some stresses that are associated with meeting those deadlines, but I just feel that we, again, and this is a fourth time, and I thought it was supposed to be getting better. Well, it hasn't gotten better. To me, it's we've basically been serving in an absentee position to making any kind of comments in any kind of in-depth meetings, because I don't believe we've had any in-depth meetings on this, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I couldn't agree more with Councilman Morrissey. This group sets the direction for the city. We set the policy. Of course, the mayor executes it. I think this is, you're right on, Mr. Morrissey, and these are big numbers. I think they deserve, the citizens would require us to spend more time as opposed to getting these, I think I saw this on Friday, not near enough time for those of us who work full-time to actually look into this at all. And so I think it does require more time to look at this.
Okay.
And I would agree with that as well, that transparency is what we talk about, or we're supposed to be talking about. And it's humorous, I guess, on a couple people, but it's transparency. Now, I support the police. I will certainly fund where I can, but without knowing the information and our current staff, as this was just kind of slipped in, and I know that it's about trying to get bad votes. So I'm here to stand up for the police department when I can, and I'm also looking to get information prior to when the staff doesn't have the answers. I'm not willing to step up and vote for that until I know what this project's we're cutting out.
Anything on this side? Gentlemen, I think this is something you need to take up with the mayor.
Mr. Chairman, I wanted to ask Michelle. Michelle, if this was delayed a couple weeks, would that cause any kind of undue harm to the process and to getting this taken care of in a timely fashion?
Michelle Wiedner, Chief Financial Officer. Unfortunately, yes. We've had our bond schedule out there. I don't recall the date of the work session that the CIP first presented to the council. Might have been the end of February. That is when planning was hoping to get your feedback. So there's been probably 6 or 8 weeks since then to contact them with any changes that were desired for the work session. At this point, we had planned to go to Moody's for a bond issue rating a week from Thursday and Friday, next May 4th and 5th, and plan to hold the bond sale May 17th. We need to have the official statement out in the market prior to that sale, particularly, this is a large, we were planning to sell a large amount. We have been talking about most of that with you throughout the budget process. It could present some real issues to put the brakes on this now. Small changes can be made to the project allocations after this. And I would say I just looked at the police request. They did not even request $40,000 for tasers, so that we funded $20,000 of a $25,000 request for their request, if we're talking about that particular one. Now, if you want to talk about others, we'd have to handle them all, and I don't have all that information with me right now, but I think either Noel or I, or both of us together, would be glad to meet with anyone tonight or tomorrow.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Michelle, the issue I have with this is that when we were getting into the budget portion of the year here a month and a half ago, I remember being told at that time that we were going to try to have CIP meetings sort of coincidental with some budget hearings and budget times, and I have all the CIP information in front of me, and I've been waiting to get have one of these meetings occur, and I did not know that it was left to us to try to sit down and have an individual meeting about any of this. I thought it was going to be something that was going to be done as a group, and I guess that's evidently my misunderstanding. I wish there could have been more clarification, so I'm just asking, if we delayed this even 1 week, would that pose a problem if we changed the date here to May 15th for the public hearing, allowing us at least a week to have some meetings so we could sit down and talk, Michelle, with different department heads?
And as I stated, that will be a problem for the schedule we have. I don't think that I can have the hearings on May 15th and sell the bonds on May 17th, because if you're not interested in selling that amount of bonds, we won't have any buyers. We just won't, or we'll be selling at a very high interest rate, which is certainly not in our taxpayers' best interest. So that's the issue at this point in time.
So, Mr. Chair, Bruce, did you?
So I guess the question is, maybe Pat, Mr. Morrissey, you're asking is if we delayed it 1 week, we would not have any buyers for the bonds?
I don't believe that's quite what I said. We have to put out a publication that goes to the market. People don't buy bonds in 5 minutes. There is an official publication, approximately 200 pages, that has to be prepared and distributed to the market. Generally, we don't sell to one issuer. We generally have a number of banks form a syndicate, and they go together and purchase the pieces that they think they can sell to their customers, but they need time to work on that prior to the sale, is what I'm saying. I do think it could reduce the number of bidders, in which case it is possible that we would be selling at a higher interest rate. And I did not ask Spear to attend tonight, but we can certainly ask them their opinion about that. I'm telling you what I believe they would tell me, based on prior experience with it.
So, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Morrissey.
Mr. Chairman, so, Michelle, if this was to be voted down tonight, what's the consequence of voting 4 and 5 down tonight?
No bond sale, I'm assuming.
We would have to see if we can sell the bonds later in June. We were hoping to not have to pay a trustee fee for the refunding bonds that we're redeeming. That will cost us a little bit of money. There will be some other expenses that we have to spend to have that changed. If your question is only switching that $20,000, that particular project can be switched later because they're in the same hearing and it won't cause a problem with bonding authority. If you have many questions about many of the projects, that's another issue.
And Mr. Chairman and Michelle, my problem is with the process, that it was not followed as I expected it to be followed, to allow us to have the input on the different departments that we wanted to have, that I was expecting to have as a council person. So Mr. Chairman, in no way do I want to be a cause of more financial strain or stress on our budget. I'm just, I guess, verbalizing my objection to the problem that we have here with not following a process that I thought was going to be more open, and then all of a sudden we're presented with this, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Anderson, do you wish to speak?
Noel Anderson, Community Planning Development Director. I would definitely take Mr. Welper's advice on speaking with the mayor then if you'd like a different process next year. The process we followed this year was one we followed many years, where we sent out the information to all the department heads. All the department heads responded with all of their projects prioritized and with the amounts updated for current year standards for 5 years worth of projects. After that was all collected and put together, we did have a work session where we went through each department line by line if the council wished, allowed you to ask questions. All the department heads were here to ask or answer the questions that you had for them. We then invited all the council to go ahead and give any more input to the planning department on the CIP process. I do not believe we received very much input directly from the council to change anything. We did work with the departments for some more minor changes within their allocated budgets of the CIP process, and that is how we're proceeding today. Again, if you believe that the council needs more staff time or face-to-face time, that's definitely something you can work with me on or directly talk to the mayor as to how you'd like that set up in the future. But we definitely strove to, or strided to try and get council input.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, could we possibly consider a follow-up meeting this week to go over this and then approve it?
All I can say is that the mayor's out of town all week. He wouldn't be back till Monday.
But you are the Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes. I'm simply following what we've been told to do.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
I think based on what Michelle said about we can make some minor adjustments in the allocations after we pass this resolution. I guess with that promise, I will support it. But I'm just as concerned as Mr. Morrissey is When I was first in the council, we got a great big book well before the bond sale with all the projects and why they were needed and all kinds of explanations. This year, we got a couple spreadsheets and something on the iPad. That doesn't really tell me anything. For instance, what we're talking about right now, the infill. Nobody knows what the infill is. The old days, we had that book, we'd go down to that, it would explain to us. I'm sure that information's someplace. It's just amazing to me how we'd come to a meeting like tonight with no information. But anyway, I will support this if, based on the promise that we can at least have a conversation about moving some money around. I really think the police need all their tasers replaced. I know they didn't ask for 40 grand. That's why I'm trying to get them another 20 so they could get 40 grand with their tasers. It's more important to me to have the policeman with a non-lethal form of defense than a sidewalk to nowhere over at Hoover.
Ms. Wiedner, you're talking about shifting money around. How soon could that be done? Or what would be the latest we could do that?
If we're switching around between the same hearing, and that's going to take some work to figure out, that there really isn't a deadline for that. It's just if you're switching between hearings or something, it's already a problem with that. The publication notices need to be published tomorrow in order to have the hearings on May 8th. So we truly are, to stay on that schedule, we truly are up against it.
Mr. Chairman, one more thing.
All right.
Michelle and/or Noel, when did the CIP process start?
November, we believe.
So that was 6 months ago. And as I recall, we had one work session, which was time limited, and we had some information at that time. And I'm not in any way disparaging any department for anything with this. It's just I do not believe that the process should ever be like that again. If it starts in November, I believe that we should be starting our asks in November, December, based on what we hear from the constituents in our individual wards or for council at large citywide, and that was not done this year. And I hope that changes, and like Mr. Lind, I will support this for the sake of making sure that we don't goof something up big time.
Okay, as I understand it, there's nothing we can do about the process now. It's a done deal.
I understand.
Okay. So we do need to move forward with the vote so we can get the bond sale done on the 8th?
May 17th is the sale. The
Okay.
hearings, the actual hearings providing this are on May 8th.
Okay. So you understand that?
Yeah, so Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
Can I make adopt the resolutions, the two resolutions? Or do you have more discussion?
Can I ask one more question for you? Just,
okay.
I thought I heard conflicting answers, but, so, if we delay this a week, we will not be able to sell the bonds, or we may not be able to sell the bonds. And if we delay this a week, we will pay higher interest, or we may pay higher interest. I thought I heard two different answers.
Got a lot of wills and mays here.
Well, I'm looking for something
I
a
am
little
not
more.
psychic. I do not think we will be able to proceed with the bond sale on the 17th because I can't get the correct notices published for the hearing language. I can't probably get a correct official statement into the market in the right amount of time. We, as you should all be aware, we sell bonds competitively. Until that auction is held on the date of the sale, I can't guarantee you what's going to happen with interest rates. As I said, I am basing that on what our financial advisors have told us over time. And, there are a lot of people selling bonds in the market on any given day. We are going with several large issues. Brokers are busy. If they feel like there's confusion or they're not sure we're going to sell because now everybody watches YouTube or reads things on the internet. They will know about this conversation. They'll just bid on somebody else's bonds And it's possible, I don't know this, but it's possible we'll have fewer bidders. It's possible they will do it at a higher rate of interest. That's just the risk that you run. We could certainly go back and delay this and try to reschedule a sale for June. There seem to be some issues with scheduling the Moody's rating and getting all that accomplished during the month of June. But if you really feel strongly that we're absolutely doing the wrong thing, then that's what we should do. And if we'll run the risk, we'll just take the risk of what happens.
So we've got a may and a shall, and it seems to me now we have a could. This could cost us by postponing this. Okay?
Okay, so Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
I move to adopt 2 resolutions. Can I proceed?
You're changing them again?
No, I'm reading the resolution.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Number 4 is a resolution electing classifications and procedures for proposed bond projects as listed in the requested Waterloo project allocations. 2017 bond issue summary for the fiscal year 2018 projects. And Resolution 5 is setting the date of public hearing as May 8, 2017 on the proposed issuance of the following bonds for project classifications and instruct the city clerk to publish said notice. Details on projects covered by each hearing are on file for review. We don't have to read all those, do we?
No.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on items 4 and 5 on the consent agenda. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I need a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Amos? What happened? Mr. Amos?
Lost him.
Are you on mute?
Yeah,
Ask him if
lost his
he's on
phone.
mute.
I'll have to reconnect.
Is he on mute?
No,
No.
no, it's not green. We've lost his,
Yep.
he's lost the connection.
Oh,
Mr. Amos, we lost your connection.
yeah, I got cut off.
Okay, we're doing the roll call.
You might explain real quick which 2 resolutions we do.
Did you hear the motion by Mr. Lynn?
No, I know he wanted to postpone the vote on the 2 resolutions in the consent agenda. Are we on that now?
We're still on that item, and he's made a motion. Would you like me to reread the motion?
Just approve them as they are written.
He's asking to approve number 4 and 5 as written on the agenda.
Okay. So is it my turn to vote?
It is.
I say yes.
Okay. Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mr. Powers?
Yes.
Mr. Lynn?
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. Item number 2.
Mr. Welper.
Yes, Mr. Schmidt.
Item number 2 is a motion to receive and file proof of publication and notice of public hearing, and that's for the request by Mark White Construction on behalf of Fusion Real Estate LLC for a site plan amendment to the CP Plan Commercial District to allow for the construction of a 12,000 square foot indoor dance studio for the 51 stall parking lot located north of 1730 West Ridgeway Avenue.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on this request. I'll now declare the hearing open. Is there anyone are there any comments on file?
No.
I'll now declare the hearing open. Any comments from anyone in the audience? Going a second time.
Mr. Welper, I make a motion to close the hearing and also the recommendation of approval of the Planning, Programming, and Zoning Commission.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on this discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion passes.
I'd like to make a motion to receive, file, and consider and pass for the first time an ordinance amending ordinance number 5079 as amended. City of Waterloo zoning ordinance by amending the official zoning map referred to in section 10-4-4, approving a rezone of certain property.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on, or a second on this motion. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none.
Mr. Welper, can I
Yes.
ask, and I guess it'd apply to the next one, but what's the timeliness of this, Noel? Can you tell us?
Noel Anderson, Community Planning Development Director. I know they are looking to get a permit very quickly, and we have not had any opposition to this.
All the neighbors have been notified and appropriately, and
That is correct.
thank you.
Anything else? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, that
Actually,
motion.
Roll call.
that's a roll call.
That was a roll call on that one? Okay, let's do a roll call on that one.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes?
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mr. Powers?
Yes.
Mr. Lind?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes.
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
Motion a second on suspending the rules. Questions? Need a roll call on that?
Mr. Welper?
Yes?
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mr. Powers?
Yes.
Mr. Lind?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes. To make a motion to consider and pass for the second and third time and adopt the ordinance.
Second.
Motion a second. Now, any questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, that motion passes. Item number 3.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, Mr. Lim.
I move to receive and file proof of publication of notice of public hearing for the sale and conveyance of city-owned property located west of 2010 West Ridgeway Avenue, Denzo, to Quick Trip, Inc. in the amount of $1 and approving development agreement and offer to purchase.
Second.
We have a motion a second on this request. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, that motion passes. I'll now declare this hearing open. Is there any comments on file? Madam Clerk?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. Anyone in the audience that wishes to address the issue?
Yes. I live about a quarter mile from there.
I need your name and your address, sir.
My name is Gary Thielebein, and my address is 738 May Y. And it's off of Martin Road in Gloria. That's where I live. Now, this property that you're talking about is, from my place, as the crow flies, probably about half a mile. I have a question. If it wasn't approved out in the country, where it was disapproved here not too long ago, why would it be approved closer to town? And where, if there's anything, any air coming out of these tanks that are going to be built there, and I understand there's 4 30,000-gallon tanks supposedly to hold biodiesel. I have a problem with that plus the other 6 tanks. Potentially you would have 300,000 gallons of biodiesel on that property, and Martin Road makes a bend and comes down to Ridgeway at that part. And just up the street from this property is Huffman Produce Garden, where hundreds, if not more than 1,000 people get their produce and all this sort of thing. I don't understand why it would be a better deal to have this project going on with this biodiesel close to a food source that people believe is, organic produce. I just have a problem with that whole situation there, and I wish more people knew about it, but I went and talked to Greg Hoffman himself that has the produce farm, and he said that he was gonna look into it, but he hadn't, this was yesterday, and he wasn't aware of it, and that had missed his radar. So I'm hoping that we can put this off or something till we can get him down here, because I think he's got the most to lose from it. So of that being that close, this is just across the road. If it's just west of Denso, it's just across Martin Road, because Denso parking lot is adjacent to the south end of Martin Road. So anyhow, I guess that's what I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Noel, is that anything you can address or not?
Noel Anderson, Community Planning and Development Director, and Wade Dumond is here from Quick Trip Incorporated that may be able to go into some more details as to the exact requirements that they're required to uphold when they build one of these. Obviously, they have to follow DNR standards and all that, but we've looked at it from a land use perspective. This is a heavy industrial planned district area that the city of Waterloo bought for industrial development. I believe it's probably over 1,200 feet to Mr. Hoffman's property from this actual site. But again, I'll let Mr. Dumond from Quick Trip talk about the project itself.
Mayor Pro Tem, and can you hear me? Okay. Mayor Pro Tem and council members, my name is Wade Dumond with Quick Trip out of La Crosse, Wisconsin, and I'll try to address some of the concerns that have been brought up. The use that we're proposing here, which is the blending facility, uses biodiesel, which was mentioned, as well as ethanol. And we do have the tanks, as mentioned, that are above ground. They are regulated by the state, just like any convenience store. The same safety mechanisms are included, plus we actually add a few more that are not required. But there's actually no greater risk. We would argue that there's less risk than in a convenience store, because all of the personnel that are actually working with the product that's on this site are trained, are licensed, and there is no access to the public. A lot of the times the issues that happen at convenience stores are spills because of the public not monitoring the filling, and everything that happens on this site will be monitored, and safety measures in place.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Dumond?
I have one. The gentleman brought up the vapor part of it. I was wondering if you could address that a bit, if there's vapors, unless it would potentially be under a fire condition that it wouldn't vaporize.
There's always a little bit of vapor when you're filling, but again, in this situation, there's going to be less vapors than there would be in a typical convenience store, because of the connection points are actually enclosed, where with a filling station, you actually are opening your tank and sticking the nozzle in and filling up, and so you have vapors coming out much more in those uncontrolled type of situations. We actually connect into the tanks with the tanker, so there's actually there is going to be some vapor, but it's minimal.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Mr. Dumond, I want to thank you for your interest in Waterloo and building here. And I remember last time we were researching this, and we did find out that the center would produce less vapor than a regular service station, as well as Quickstar has quite a record of safety that we were pretty impressed with as we looked into it last time. And I would assume that hasn't changed at all since the last time we talked. So I do think that it's about the same amount of vapor in that as a regular gas station that we would have, and this happens to be an industrial area. So I think that we're pretty confirmed about it.
Okay. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, the vapors dissipate rather quickly, though, don't they?
Yes, sir.
They don't travel 1,200 feet.
No, they tend to dissipate very rapidly, so that they're mixed with air, and yeah.
So contamination of a farm that's half a mile away is pretty remote.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Morrissey.
Last time when this was brought up, it was on 63 down by the barn area, and I don't know if this would go to Mr. Chairman, to Noel or to Mr. Dumont, but at that time there were concerns from the neighbors about the closeness to their residential addition there, and then the other, and I'm wondering have those concerns been alleviated by the move to this site, and maybe that's more Noel. And then the other thing should there be any concerns about leaching of any kind of leak into Black Hawk Creek? And because you'd mentioned about IDNR being involved.
I'll take the second one first, but I'll let Noel take the first one, as you mentioned, sir. Regarding the water or leaching into the groundwater, we have all of the tanks and all of the piping are all double walled with monitoring equipment in the intervening space, so that any liquid, whether it's water or fuel or anything, we know it before it leaks. We've had these systems in place since the late 1990s. We've had no leaks, no problems. So that same system will be used here. Plus, we also have a secondary containment system that actually is the stormwater runoff. It goes through an underground storage tank that will do the oil-water separation.
Noel Anderson, Community Planning Development Director. In regards to the first question, last time the location they're looking at, which is the red barn on 63 South, there was vacant land around it that was zoned RP, planned residence district, with some of that also planned for commercial development. So there was land abutting that could have potentially have been residential or commercial uses. With this location, the city of Waterloo originally bought 26 acres. It's all zoned heavy industrial land, planned district that we put Denso on. This would be the second project on that site. So obviously we do not plan to have any more residential anywhere along that entire portion west of Martin Road, between there and the Greenbelt. There is one home approximately 700 feet to the northeast of this site that is totally surrounded by our acquisition. The previous owner did have an option agreement with the owner there to buy that out eventually. I would imagine the city would go in the same route of that, over time that house would otherwise be surrounded by industrial development, so it would make sense for the city to look at potential acquisition of that in the future.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
I would just make a comment that I did talk to Bob Farr of Farr Beverage there, and he said that Quick Trip would be a good neighbor, and he welcomed that in that space.
Okay. Anyone else in the audience that wish to speak on this? Second time. Gentlemen, you wish to speak, sir?
Kevin Everding, 617 Campbell. I'm more objecting to the fact we're selling it for $1, because due to the fact that the Waterloo, everybody in Waterloo and their water bill is paying that federal runoff price, and this would be a big chunk if they sold $500,000 worth of land and got that for it. That would go towards saving the citizens of Waterloo the tax they're paying on the federal runoff. And as far as what they pay for it, it's a tax write-off for them either way for their taxes. So I think it's a poor business for Waterloo to sell $500,000 of land for $1. Whereas it would benefit the citizens to have that extra money to put towards the water runoff, so lower the bills to the citizens of Waterloo.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I move to close hearing and receive and file oral comments.
Second.
A motion and a second on this. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All same side. That passes.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I move to adopt a resolution approving a purchase agreement between Quick Trip, Inc. of La Crosse, Wisconsin, and the City of Waterloo, Iowa, for the purchase of city-owned property located west of 2010 West Ridgeway Avenue in the amount of $1, and authorize mayor to execute said agreement.
Second.
A motion and a second on this resolution. Questions? Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Jacobs? Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mr. Powers?
Yes.
Mr. Lind?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I move to adopt a resolution approving sale and conveyance of city-owned property located west of 2010 West Ridgeway Avenue, Denso, to Quick Trip, Inc. of La Crosse, Wisconsin, in the amount of $1, and authorize mayor and city clerk to execute necessary documents.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on this resolution. Question?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
Noel, we're following the standard policy, development policy when we're selling this for $1, because basically what we're doing, aren't we, trying to reimburse them for land?
Yes, we are.
I mean, giving them free land.
That
That's
is
our
correct.
policy.
Is in accordance with the economic development policy of the city of Waterloo.
Right. Thanks.
Anyone else? Roll call, please.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mr. Powers?
Yes.
Mr. Lynn?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Okay, that resolution passes.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I move to adopt a resolution approving a development agreement between Quick Trip, Inc. of La Crosse, Wisconsin, and City of Waterloo, Iowa, for the development of property located west of 2010 West Ridgeway Avenue, and authorize mayor to execute said agreement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the resolution. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I have a question real quick first.
Okay, sure.
Noel, we have to provide water and sewer to the site, not in the site. Do you have an estimate of what that's going to cost? And would we do that anyway? Don't we have to extend water and sewer out there to continue development?
Noel Anderson, Community Planning Development Director. Yes, as part of providing infrastructure to our 26-acre parcel, we did provide it at the corner there to Denso to further develop this land for the Quick Trip project or for further projects we would need to extend the infrastructure either way. We have a couple of different options as to how to get the sewer there. So the estimates probably go from about $120,000 to $200,000 as to how we get the infrastructure there. And again, it'll be planned out to provide it not only for this project, but for future projects as well.
Thanks. And I read the development agreement a couple times, and we're not giving any other incentives, as I understood it. We're
That
not
is
giving
correct.
tax rebates or...
That is correct.
Thanks. And by the way, didn't we buy that land a long time ago at a fairly reasonable price compared to what land's selling for now?
We bought it in 2004, I believe, for about $7,200 an acre.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Roll call, please.
Mr. Powers?
Yes.
Mr. Lynn?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Okay, that passes. Item number 4.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Morrissey.
I'd like to make a motion to receive and file proof of publication of notice of public hearing on the sale and conveyance of city-owned property located at 1330 Scott Avenue to Tim Moyer in the amount of $28,000 and approved development agreement.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on this city-owned property. Questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. I'll now declare this hearing open. Is there any comments on file?
No, there are not.
Okay. In the audience, does anyone here wish to speak for or against the item?
Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council, I'm Forrest Dillaboo, 1725 Huntington Road. Am I done already?
Thank you very much, Forrest.
Sit down. I'm very pleased with this. This started out to be a 657A property, which meant the city was going to tear it down, clear the property, and probably give it for $1 with incentives to build on it. As it turns out, we get $28,000 out of something. Staff did not realize what the public did, that it's worth something. The public went to staff and asked to have it put up for sale, which they did, which netted the city at least $28,000. And it goes to show that nobody's perfect. Staff didn't know it was worth $28,000. People in the public knew that it was worth money and have proved it by a bid. We need to do more of this. We need to have more citizen input, more transparency on these things. No one knew it was, the city even owned it. I tried to buy it 2 or 3 months prior to the city getting it over at the county. I wanted to pay the taxes and get it. They told me I couldn't do it. but then somehow the city ended up with it, and then I got involved in asking about bidding on it. This can be a positive. We need to do more of this. Thank you.
Yep, thanks, Forrest. Anyone else? Second time?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing and receive and file oral comments.
Second. Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion passes.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing sale and conveyance of 1330 Scott Avenue to Tim Moyer for $28,000 and authorize city attorney to prepare and deliver deed accordingly.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the resolutions. Questions? Hearing none, I need a roll call, please.
Mr. Lynn?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mr. Powers?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution approving development agreement and authorize mayor and city clerk to execute said document or agreement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this resolution. Questions? Hearing none, a roll call, please.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mr. Powers?
Yes.
Mr. Lynn?
Yes.
Okay, the resolution passes. Congratulations, Mr. Moyer. You bet yourself a house. Another house.
Mr. Welper.
Item number 5.
Item number 5 is a motion to receive and file proof of publication of notice of public hearing, and that's for the fiscal year 2017 flood control gate well repairs, contract number 918.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on this request. Questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion passes.
Pull the plug.
Yeah.
We'll now declare this hearing open. Madam Clerk, is there any comments on file?
No, there are not.
Anybody in the audience that wishes to speak for the item? Second time?
Mr. Welper, I make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second on closing the hearing. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion passes.
Mr. Welper, I'd like to adopt a resolution conferring approval of plans, specification, form of contract, etc.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this. Any questions or discussion on this item? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mr. Powers?
Yes.
Mr. Lynn?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
That resolution passes.
I'd like to adopt a resolution authorizing to proceed.
I second.
Motion and a second on this resolution. Roll call, please.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mr. Powers?
Yes.
Mr. Lynn?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Okay, resolution passes.
Okay, finally, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file and instruct the city clerk to read bids and refer to city engineer for review.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this. Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say- That motion passes. If you'll read the bids.
Peterson Contractors, Inc. of Rhinebeck, Iowa, $221,066. Tricon Construction Group, Dubuque, Iowa, $378,000. Rick Lifts Excavating Ltd., Anamosa, Iowa, $288,000. WRH Inc. of Amana, Iowa, $229,500.
Okay, thank you. Item number 6.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr.
I move
Lynn.
to receive and file proof of publication of notice of public hearing, which is the fiscal year ending 2017 budget amendment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this. Filing proof of publication. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. I'll declare this hearing open. Is there any comments on file?
No, there are not.
Okay. Anyone in the audience that wishes to speak for or against the issue?
John Sherman, 1715 Robin Road. This This is one of the most confusing things I've ever looked at in this thing. Is this something that has to be passed tonight? What, we're going to pass a budget amendment, and what is this amendment? Thank you.
Mrs. Weidner?
Michelle Weidner, Chief Financial Officer. This budget amendment addresses needs we have for funding health claim costs. If you'll all remember a year ago when we were working on the budget, we did say that we would likely use restricted health insurance reserves for some health claims in order to keep our taxes, current taxes of the taxpayer lower. I did not incorporate that into the budget, so we have to incorporate it now. We are 10 months into this year's budget, and as it turns out, we do need to use some of those restricted health fund reserves to pay claims for the next 2 months. We also have some large claims where we have stop loss insurance that's covering it, and that wasn't budgeted for, so I'm also including that in this amendment. That's the bulk of the amendment. There is also a small amount to pay liability insurance claims. I think you'll all probably recall that earlier this year, we settled several lawsuits that we have to pay those claims. Those really weren't budgeted, and also if you go back to last year's budget, we did talk about using liability insurance restricted fund balance as well. So we are also amending the liability claims to pay those. There is some small amount of insurance reimbursement for that also. So we need to do these now because we should get authorization to spend the money before we spend it, even though we are not changing taxpayer taxes right now. We are spending money, and that is what the budget amendment is for.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Michelle, I would like to receive, and I'm sure other council people would, a list of the health care and liability insurance claims for this year.
We will look at what we can provide you. You see those as they are paid in the bill payments. We might have to redact names, particularly with
I'm
health
sure you have a
insurance.
spreadsheet with all that stuff. When I'm the liaison for the Waterworks Board, and once a year, their insurance carrier comes and gives us a copy of all the claims from the previous year, so everybody knows what they're spending their money on. It's very helpful. Anyway, if you could do that, I would appreciate it.
I'll get you what we can.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Now, anyone else in the audience that wishes to address this? Second time?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I move to close the hearing and receive and file oral comments.
Second.
A motion and a second on closing the hearing. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. That motion passes.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I move to adopt a resolution to approve said budget amendment.
Second.
Motion and a second on this resolution. Any questions now? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mr. Powers?
Yes.
Mr. Lynn?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes. Okay, that motion passes. Our last hearing,
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. Morrissey.
I'd like to make a motion to receive and file proof of publication notice of public hearing on the purchase of one automated side load garbage truck for the sanitation department.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this. Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. I'll declare this hearing open. Madam Clerk, any comments on file?
No, I have none.
We have none. Anyone in the audience that wishes to speak for or against the item?
David Dryer, 3145 West 4th Street. I asked several meetings ago as to how many vehicles we have purchased in the last 12 months with no answer. Can I get one now? Because we seem to keep buying vehicles all during the year. Every department seems to want another vehicle, another vehicle. How many have we purchased in the last 12 months?
I don't have that number, and there is a recycle pattern that we follow. I believe is it 15 years? Every 15 years we replace vehicles, or somebody can answer that?
Well, we sure replaced a lot in the last year.
10 years? What's our recycling period?
Sandy Greco, I'm new at this part. There is a pattern, and if I remember right, garbage trucks or sanitation trucks are like every 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
But then they go back in, we still use them into the recycling part, some of them, so it's just the automated garbage trucks that we replace just because of the wear and tear on them.
Okay.
And I can, it's gonna take me a little bit, but I can get you a list of what, do you want in a year, or do you want like our fiscal year?
Well, ma'am, the last 12 months, it seems like we have replaced a lot of vehicles in the police department, sanitation, the forestry, the whole works. And it seems like we're spending a lot of money in the last year, last 12 months anyway, on a lot of vehicles. And is that at the end of that period that we do the, so that's the answer I'm looking for.
Right.
is, you know.
Everything is in a cycle. Everything is.
My pickup's a 2006. My wife's Jeep is a 2003. And they're both working very well right now. Plus, it sounds like we don't pass them on down to somebody that uses them less. We just got to buy new for everybody.
I think they're pretty wore out when we're done with them.
And some are passed down.
Well, 160,000 miles on the Jeep and 130,000 miles on the truck. That's a lot of miles.
I'll respond to that a little bit to kind of back up Sandy, because I do work with that also. We have, the city has a lot of vehicles. We have a lot of employees that have to have vehicles for their work. Police cars, generally frontline patrol cars, we use in the frontline patrol for 3 years, and they'll have well over 100,000 miles at that point. Those, you know, they are driven, have to be driven fast and stop quickly. That's hard use. It's not hopefully the same way that you and I drive our personal vehicles.
Correct.
We do, when possible, recycle those down, but often they are at a point where we just can't. We have been trying to replace vehicles. I can tell you some of the big trucks are 20 or 25 years old. So we do try to look at conditions of vehicles, mileage, hours. Sometimes with the kind of vehicles we use, it isn't about the miles on them, it's about the hours and other things like that. So I think that the previous Public Works Director and our other staff over the years I've been here, I don't think we're just buying people new vehicles every year. We are trying to trade out bad ones that are costing us more in repairs and keep everybody's vehicle working so that they're all on the job working.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I have one question, kind of with the same. We had a study done about single-side garbage pickup, and the reason we did that, we wanted to see if that would save the life of these trucks that we're buying. Could you send us a copy of that study, the results of that study?
Is anybody else in the audience that wishes to speak for this second time?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing and receive and file oral comments.
Second.
Motion to second on closing the hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion passes.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution confirming approval of plans, specifications, form of contract, etc.
Second.
Motion to second on this resolution. Questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mr. Powers?
Yes.
Mr. Lynn?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Okay, the resolution passes.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Morrissey?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing to proceed.
I second.
Motion to second on this resolution. Any questions now? Roll call, please.
Mr. Powers?
Yes.
Mr. Lynn?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Okay, the resolution passes.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
Mr. Morrissey?
I'd like to make a motion to receive, file, and instruct the city clerk to read bids and refer to interim public works director for review.
Second.
Need a second? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 That motion passes. Now, if you will read the bids, please.
Harrison Truck Center, Elk Run Heights, Iowa, $240,573. And there was an alternate that was bid, $233,659.
Okay.
Hang on a second. Let me make sure this is right. I'm not quite sure why there was an alternate. Cedar Rapids Truck Center, $231,250. Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Custom Truck, Inc., Sioux Falls, South Dakota, $239,798.88.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I got a quick question.
Sure.
Sandy, is the garbage part of the truck, are we buying that from do they get that from our local vendor in Cedar Falls, the same person we've been using before? Do you know?
Everything will be included on this truck, so it's how they bid it as to where they get.
You don't know if they have it from Cedar Falls?
I haven't looked through
On the bid,
all of the
okay.
bids yet.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
So with these bids being so close dollar-wise, would we be giving local preference to the closest provider?
We go off low bid.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, item number 8 has been, the hearing's been canceled. We just need someone to read it into the record.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, the purchase of 2 compact pickup trucks for the engine department the hearing has been canceled because no bids were received.
Okay, thank you. Resolutions.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
how many?
How many would you like?
All of them.
How about
Let's get
3?
Okay, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution approving the fiscal year 2018 ambulance fee schedule. And number 10, a resolution approving an agreement with Cedar Valley Catholic Schools allowing use of Bontrager Park for football practice and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute said agreement. And number 11, a resolution approving a 1-year farm lease agreement for 2017 with Doug Bruns to farm approximately 28.4 acres of land generally located south of Highway 20 and west of Kimball Avenue for a total yearly payment of $800 and authorize mayor and city clerk to execute said document.
Second.
A motion and a second on the resolutions 9, 10, and 11. Any questions or?
Could we have a little overview on number 9, please?
Pat Treeler, Fire Chief. What's before you tonight is the fiscal year 2018 ambulance fee schedule. We get a maximum allowable fee schedule sent to us every year at the end of March. That's Blue Cross Blue Shield sets maximum allowable fees. We have an agreement with them. So before you tonight, there's 5 different fees in our fee schedule. You'll see that there's 3 of the categories that are having slight increases. We're pleased to see that the mileage fee will go up to $13 a mile, loaded mile. We bill about 21,000 loaded miles a year, so we'll see some significant increase in revenue there.
So do you anticipate those increases when you submit your budget for next year, or is this on top of that, or how does the timing of that work?
Yeah, unfortunately, we always get the letter towards the end of March. This one was dated March 31st of 2017, so the budget's already set. We're thinking that we'll realize probably about $20,000 in net revenue on these increases. So to answer your question, it wasn't projected in next year's, although we did have a slight increase in next year's revenue. We're thinking our call volume will continually increase.
So you said, does this come from Blue Cross Blue Shield, did you say? Or
we get a maximum allowable fee that we always want to be at or above. And so 3 of our billable call types in there are above the maximum allowable fee that's set through Blue Cross Blue Shield. So in other words, we may bill a patient $1,000, and if they're a Medicaid patient, Medicaid, the agreement we have with them, they may pay about $118 because we need to take assignment from Medicare and Medicaid.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Anyone
also,
else?
Mr. Welper, if
Yes.
I could, on item number 10, Paul, Did that discussion take place between the Cedar Valley Catholic Schools and West High as far as sharing that space?
Paul Heading, Leisure Services Director. Just a brief overview. This was presented at the Leisure Services Commission meeting. Councilman Schmidt was there. The conversation was around a previously existing activity there, cross-country meets, and there was a discussion between Waterloo Community Schools Administration and Cedar Valley Catholic Schools Administration, and no problems, no red flags. They're going to be able to work together just fine on it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Anyone else? I need a roll call on 9, 10, and 11, please.
Mr. Lind?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Powers?
Yes.
Okay, those resolutions passed. 12, 13, and 14.
Mr. Welper.
Mr. Schmidt?
Item number 12 is adopting a resolution approving award of contract to Game Time in care of Cunningham Recreation of Charlotte, North Carolina, in the amount of $44,855.86, and approving the contract bonds and certificate of insurance for the fiscal year 2017 Highland Park Playground Project, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute said documents. 13 is adopting a resolution approving the Nevada Street Railroad Crossing Surface Repair Agreement with the Iowa Department of Transportation and the Chicago Central and Pacific Railroad for the repair of one surface crossing totaling 78 lineal feet for a project total of $133,389, with the city's cost at $27,177.80. And item number 14 is adopting a resolution approving the East 4th Street Railroad Crossing Surface Repair Agreement with the Iowa Department of Transportation and the Chicago Central and Pacific Railroad Company for the repair of 3 surface crossings totaling 288 lineal feet across the Canadian National Railroad Yard for a project total of $394,123, with the city's cost at $79,824.60.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the 3 resolutions, 12, 13, and 14. Any questions on any of those items? Need a roll call, please?
Mr. Amos?
Were you coming to speak? Would help.
Yeah, step it out. Okay. David Dreyer, 3145 West 4th Street. My question is on 13 and 14. Was this money that the city's going to end up spending already in the budget, or where do we find the money to do these things outside of the budget? Because most of us have to live within a budget. So do we find money on a tree somewhere, or where does this money come from to find these if it wasn't already in the budget? To pay for these if it wasn't already in the budget?
Eric Thorsten, city engineer. This is a program where the state has money available to do these crossings, and they pay 60% of the cost. The railroad pays 20, and we pay 20. We've been doing these for over 20 years, and we use the local option tax to pay the 20% that the city pays, because we figured that, typically speaking, if there were no tracks there, we had to replace the road through, that'd be about that same as that 20%. So we've been doing that for a long time to leverage those funds and get railroad crossings replaced.
Okay, so the local option tax doesn't just go for street repair, like we have been told for years. It also goes for, which I agree, that's street repair, but
That's right.
That's kind of not the street repair I was thinking about. Okay, thank you.
Definitely street repair, because those crossings are rough and we get lots of complaints.
Agreed. Just I'm thinking of the whole street, not a...
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
I would point out, as far as, back to Resolution 12, we should thank the UNI football team for not only raising money, but also helping to construct that park. So go Panthers.
Good deal.
Thank you.
Good deal.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, I hear roll call, please. 12, 13, and 14.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mr. Powers?
Yes.
Mr. Lind?
Yes.
Okay, those resolutions pass. Somebody take 15 and 16 by themselves.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
Mr. Lynn.
I move to adopt a resolution awarding bid in the amount of $117,794.65 to Pritchard Auto Company of Britt, Iowa for one service truck for the sewer department. And I move to adopt a resolution approving award of hotel motel tax council discretionary funds to the Bosnian Culture Foundation in the amount of $10,000, the Waterloo Homecoming Association in the amount of $10,000, Main Street Waterloo in the amount of $10,000, Leisure Services Golf in the amount of $10,000, North End Cultural Center in the amount of $5,000, Aspire Therapeutic Writing Program in the amount of $8,000, and Waterloo Police Department in the amount of $30,000.
Second. Motion to second on these two resolutions. Any questions?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, just one quick question. We're voting on all or none, is that correct?
Yes.
Mr. Welber, can I
Yes.
ask you a quick question on item number 16, Chief Trelka? The $30,000 in there for Waterloo Police Department, is that for events? What is that $30,000 for?
Dan Trelka, Chief of Police. I don't have the specifics in front of me. Maybe Michelle would know better, but I do believe it does include some events.
So would these be events, budget time, we talked about how I believe we were told we had implemented a program where some of our events now are paying for the public safety. So is this other events, or did I misunderstand that at budget time?
You did not misunderstand. One thing we take into consideration, if the event has the means to pay, and if they don't have the means to pay, we try to cover the cost with this funding.
Thank you.
Anyone? No.
And attached to your council agenda is the application that police turned in with the specific events that they requested funding for that add up to the $30,000. I can read those if you want, Mr.
I'd like to
Welper.
have you, because the audience at home probably would not have access to those. That'd be great. Thanks.
Irish Fest, $1,000. Dignitary Protection for Political Events, $5,000. National Cattle Congress, $15,000. Barbecue Lou, $1,500. 4th Street Cruise, $4,000. My Waterloo Days, $3,500. And these, I believe, are estimates, but that's what they were estimating.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Anyone else? Need a roll call on 15 and 16, please.
Mr. Schmidt?
I'm going to vote yes on 15. I'm going to vote no on 16 because I do think there are some items on there that do not follow the guidelines for what I understood the hotel motel tax to be for. So I'm going to vote no on 16.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes on 15, yes on 16, except I have to abstain on the Main Street part of that.
We can't do that. You just said you could only vote all or none.
He's abstaining because his wife works for that organization.
But you gotta abstain on the whole thing, don't you? It's all or nothing.
Mr. Sullivan?
Wow. Thanks for the warning. Dave Zellifer, City Attorney. You woke me up for that, Pat. Jeez. No,
He wants to.
the question is whether or not they have to abstain just on the Main Street or have the ability to abstain just on the Main Street portion of it. That's an excellent question. I don't have a perfect answer for it, but I think you'll have to abstain on 16 in its entirety. You can't just go on bits.
He was trying to do the right thing and it didn't work.
Yeah.
And Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I would ask that the city attorney do some research and come back with an answer for future reference, please.
Okay.
Cheers.
Because I will keep my vote as is.
Okay. Mr. Powers.
Yeah. Mr. Powers?
Yes.
Mr. Lynn?
Yes on 15. On 16, some of those organizations do not deserve that kind of money. no on 16.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
I'm confused. Did they all pass?
Yes, because, yes.
Okay, very good. Let's take 17 by itself, please. There may be some questions on
Mr.
this.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, Mr. Morrissey.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution approving conflict of interest waiver between the City of Waterloo and Ehlers and Cooney PC for work on a 2080 agreement between Hawkeye Community College and the City of Waterloo.
Second. Okay, we have a motion, a second on this resolution. Are there any questions on this?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. Chairman.
Just a moment, Jerome. Go ahead.
I would request that we have a work session to discuss the draft 23 agreement before we adopt this resolution. Because in that email attached, there's some troubling comments about us buying land and them buying land and selling it back to us, and we're going to sell it at a profit. And that I want to see the written proposal before we waive the conflict of interest agreement.
Mr. Zelford, you need to address this.
Dave Zellifer, City Attorney. This wouldn't be approving the agreement. You'll still have a chance to vote on that, Mr. Lind. What this is the Allers law firm down in Des Moines has discovered they're doing work for Hawkeye, and they've also done work for us in the past and still are. Under the ethical rules of the Bar Association and the Iowa Supreme Court, they have to disclose this potential conflict. The purpose of this vote here today is not to discuss whether or not the document they come up with is going to be in favor or against it. It's going to be allowing them to produce something and us acknowledging, yes, they've represented both of us, but we're going to allow them to put the agreement together for our approval without acknowledging the conflict. They have a legal obligation to say, hey, we've done work for both of you. And we know that it's kind of a form over substance vote today. But when the agreement does come up and is finalized, then you guys will have a chance to vote on it, yea or nay.
Can I request then that during their work on the draft agreement, we get copied on drafts as they go back and forth?
Oh, sure, they'll be coming to me.
So we know what's going on?
Yeah, they'll be coming to me, and I'll be more than happy to put them off on you guys and let you read them as soon as I get them.
Thank you.
I'll forward them to you. Remind me.
Thanks.
Mr. Weber.
Yes,
Or did-
Schmidt.
Was Jerome next?
I'm sorry, Jerome. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, as you well know, I work for Hawkeye Community College. Is there an issue here with me voting on this particular resolution?
The city attorney shaking his head no.
Okay, that's all I need to know.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Weber.
Yes.
So, Mr. Zellifer, just to be clear, at this stage, we're not to any point where we would be able to recognize a potential conflict of interest on the attorney's part. Is that what
Well,
you're saying?
they're acknowledging it. They're saying they've done work for us in the past, they've done
Right.
work for Hawkeye in the past. Because of that, there's a rule at the Supreme Court level that says they have a legal obligation to say to both parties involved, hey, we've worked for both of you. If you don't want this to happen, then what'll happen is they'll get out and everybody will have to get their own lawyers, and there'll be two sets of lawyers doing this and spending money, and or somebody will have to take over from square one. And so it's a cost-saving measure, plus it's something they have to do.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Excuse me.
Mr. Zelfer, so.
Excuse me, I wasn't finished yet. So are we beyond square one? Now I'm confused. Have we started the process, so we're beyond square one, or we haven't started yet? So that's why they're letting us know this.
Yeah, no, they got into it, then they discovered, hey, wait a minute, this could be a conflict. So they put the brakes on and notified me last week, and I said, yeah, I'll get this on the council agenda as soon as possible so that we can get moving on it, one way or another.
So the benefit to the taxpayers would be to have the same attorney representing both parties?
Well, we both want the same thing, presumably. If we get into the middle of this and find out we're at odds and we're butting heads and we can't agree, then we're obviously going to have to get different counsel. But until that happens, it's best just to have them put together, this will be a basic, simple agreement. It's not going to be horribly expensive for either Hawkeye or us right now. And we'll, if it works out, but if we bring it back to the council and you have some tweaks on it, then great.
I'm not a realtor, and I'm not an attorney, but, I mean, realtors typically, don't represent the buyer and the seller as a rule. And isn't that part of the reason why typically you wouldn't have the same attorney representing both parties?
Yeah,
or?
well, if the realtors are under the same legal obligation we are, if they are, then they have to tell them, and normally they don't. Same as these situations, but lawyers are different. They have the obligation to say, "Hey, here you are. We've discovered this apparent potential conflict, and if you don't like it, we'll write them or call them tomorrow and tell them no."
And is there a reason why if this is such a simple thing, why we're using somebody from Des Moines?
We aren't. Hawkeye is. This is they're Hawkeye's attorney. They started doing this for Hawkeye. Then they discovered, hey, we represent Waterloo too. Let's stop this and make sure Waterloo says that's okay.
So they are representing Waterloo too. They just said they were.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Okay, can I maybe
Mayor
add a
Pro
little
Tem.
clarity to this for a moment? So community colleges in Iowa, there are some that have done a similar process before. The Allers firm has attorneys that deal with the community colleges and have done these things before. That is why Allers firm and the staff that is presenting this is presenting it. They're disclosing a conflict because they also do other work for the city of Waterloo. We really are not asking them to represent us on this agreement. I think that Mr. Zellifer will likely represent the city of Waterloo on this agreement, but they're required to notify you that they are working for another client on this particular case, because this arrangement benefits both parties. It will benefit Hawkeye Community College and the city. So we are trying actually to save money because they've done agreements, I won't say exactly like this, but they've set up arrangements for this type of general agreement before, and we hope that will be beneficial to both parties. But we will certainly have our attorneys, which will be Mr. Zellifer, or if you wish, we could have another attorney look at it. So I don't want you to think that we are having them represent both of us. I don't believe that's the case.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I just
Yes.
had a question. Is Ehlers and Cooney the Sunnyside South lawyers?
I believe yes. Yes? Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't get what you said this. Are they the South Side lawyers?
Sunnyside South.
Any other questions? Need a roll call, please? On 17.
Yep. Mr. Welper.
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt, or I'm sorry, Mr. Jacobs.
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey.
Yes.
Mr. Powers.
Yes.
Mr. Lynn.
Yes.
Mr. Amos.
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
Okay, the resolution passes. Ordinances, number 18.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. Morrissey.
I'd like to make a motion to receive, file, consider, and pass for the first time an ordinance amending the 2007 City of Waterloo Code of Ordinances by adding to Title VI, Motor Vehicles and Traffic, a new Chapter 7, Parking in Residential Areas.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on this motion. Any questions or discussion?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
I move to amend. I want on 6-7-3A2, delete the words effectively screened by a solid fence at least 6 feet in height.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this request. Any discussion in regards to this? Mr. Delaveau?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council, I would like to speak to this. I did just a little bit of research on what it would cost to enclose one vehicle. I called one fence company, and they said it would be 2,200 to 2,500 erected. So each one of the citizens out there that has a boat, a small camper or whatever, that would be the minimum amount they would have to pay with that fencing company. I went to Menards, and theirs, just the materials, is around $600. My experience is a contractor wants twice the cost of materials, so that'd be $1,500 to $1,800 just for a fence like that. And as a landlord, I can tell you that if you've got an enclosed place like that, you don't know what's in it. I mean, they may be throwing the dead cats and dogs over the fence. They may be taking their garbage out and putting it in there. And the city can't see it, and I can't see it. But if a car is parked on pavers, everybody can see it and see to it that it gets taken care of properly. I really would like to see this fencing thing go away because of those reasons. You know, I have hauled away trailer after trailer load of stuff out of houses and garages and back buildings, and I think with this enclosure, you would be inviting that type of thing. Thank you kindly. And
Jerry Hageman at 3052 San Salvador. I'm reading this for a neighbor of mine, Bill and Martha Zook, and it's not directly related to the fencing of the item. It's just they've been dealing with this trailer in the front yard issue for a long time. So it's a very short letter. I'll just read it as is. And also he's got photographs for anybody who wants to see them after the meeting. Dear Mayor Quentin Hart, writing about the changing of the ordinance for parking in the front yard for campers from April through October. We purchased 3229 Randolph in May of 2014. The realtor said it was okay to park in the front yard as long as it's on a hard surface. We paid a cement contractor to put hard surface in. He also said as long as we park on a hard surface, that's okay. We talked to the new neighbors and they were okay with parking the camper on a hard surface in our front yard. Our neighbors at 3207 Randolph and 1190 Lindner also had campers in their front yard. Everybody remembers the ordinance about the hard surface, but no one remembers about campers. This area was developed in 60s and 70s. The city took away putting alleys in and letting the developer put houses close together, no side yard. City and developer could make more money. We had no choice but to park in the front yard. We would like to camp in the Cedar Valley, and with the camper in the front yard, we can take off anytime and go camping. Sincerely yours, Martha Zook and Bill Zook. And then he also has a letter to the editor. So I don't know if I'm being asked to read this, but also it being a neighbor who walks by here, it's a very short camper. It doesn't, and we happen to be in a neighborhood that does not have, is what I'd say lucky enough to not have sidewalks, so that's not an issue here. It's a very short camper. And
Jerry, if I may, we pulled recreational vehicles out of the parking ordinance for now. We haven't addressed that.
Okay,
we're
that's why I was wondering.
We're not addressing that tonight.
Okay, well, sorry. Thank you. Just cut me off.
Please come back. But
all right. Thank you. All right.
Are you wishing to maybe just revisit this whole ordinance again? Or I know Mr. Morrissey wanted to get it passed as soon as possible. Maybe the others feel the same way.
Mr. Chairman, it's on the agenda to be voted on.
I understand that.
Let's vote for that small change and then get on with it.
We have a motion and a second on that. You ready to vote on that?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I think what we're talking about is adding, kind of dictating what people do in their backyards. And we have to think about citizens, homeowners, also landlords who have to actually work with these ordinances. And this will cost our taxpayers a lot of money to do this, something that's in their backyard. And so, I think Councilman Lind is correct in this amendment, and I support it.
Go ahead, Mr. Schmidt.
And I was just going to add that I think, if we go back to where this all started, part of the discussion was helping to, I don't know if beautify is the right word, but clean up our community. And I think the bulk of that, the issue is really in front of the house. And I would tend to agree what people do in their backyards within reason and within legality. I don't see the effect of that, so I would think this is a pretty minor issue, and we should support it.
Go ahead, Mr. Powers.
I would agree. I would agree with that. That I do think it's fairly minor as well, and also we can amend any of these ordinances at any time. We can bring them back if there appears to be a continuous violation or a bit growing issue for code enforcement or others. So I'm going to be supporting this, Mr. Lynn's amendment.
I believe I'm the only council member that was on here when the International Property Maintenance Code was adopted. Were you here? No. Not yet. It was brought to us by a building official, Lou Cutright, and I remember him saying to me that addressing parking in the front yard was one thing, but he said we need to stay out of people's backyards. That's a whole different ballgame.
Right.
And it keeps coming back to us that he's right, that people want us to stay out of their backyards. So anyway, that's a little something that I remember. Sir, did you wish to speak?
Are any of the city council members aware of the fact that there is no code enforcement book to look at City Hall here? You can't go down to code enforcement and see what the rules are. The only people that have the rules are code enforcement officers. There's no one you can look at to see what the codes are. And the only one that Waterloo has, they adopted the international code. The most recent one the Waterloo Public Library has, the 2003 edition. So if you want to pass rules and codes, we can't even see what they are.
I think we're on 2009, or is it 2015, right? Anybody know what?
But the most current one at the library is 2003.
Okay. Well, we're in the process of rewriting them. That's just the basic International Property Maintenance Code. We do adopt them to fit our own cities.
But there should be a copy we could read.
Well, they're still being drawn up. That's our problem. We don't have one. Excuse me, but he was here earlier.
He spoke before. I'm Campbell. You live on Campbell? I think he's Thompson. You a neighbor of yours?
Okay, anyway, we're back to
The motion.
Mr. Lynn's motion. John, did you wish to speak? Okay.
John Sherman, 1715 Robin Road. I know we've been through a lot. I was here when they first started with the international code. Anything that's international fits Waterloo is pretty nifty to me. This is a very, I'm going to search for a word here, a varied city, because my house is different than yours. My neighborhood is different than yours. I have a half-acre lot. We've got people here that have lots of more areas than I do. But we also have a new housing areas up at Home Depot area and all these new places. And every one of them are built like, this far apart. You can't get to the backyard. And the neat part of them is every one of them's got a big garage in the front and a driveway, at which we have to approve or, make sure that everybody gets to approve it, which is sort of bottlenecking things. And so, the cars all sit in the front yard. Now, I don't like that kind of housing. That's my opinion. That's why I don't live there. I live where I live. But other people have the same, maybe they like that. So they have this ability that, maybe they should be allowed to do that. We try to strangulate everything that everybody does. I've got neighbors that have motorhomes. Some of them have 2 motorhomes. And I realize that, if you got that kind of money, and these are nice motorhomes. If you got that kind of nice money and stuff in there, you should be allowed to park them in the front because it's not an eyesore, it's not even close to the traffic. They're just as nice as their houses. And, then we can go down a couple blocks down the road around and find an older one or something. But we pass a law that affects everybody to stab a couple people or straighten up one little problem. But it affects everybody. And that's some of the problem that we get into. I can understand most of the reasoning of, keeping the town clean and all the other things. That's a good plan. But at what cost when an older couple that has this motorhome wants to keep it there, or a boat trailer or something into that fact, and they take care of their house. It's back to this driveway problem that we've had. Here's somebody that's doing something, And we tell them, you can't do that. We don't want you, take an old gravel driveway or something. I'm doing the best I can with very little money, and I know a lot of other people are too. And the more taxes, the more ordinances, the more things I have to do, when are you guys gonna start telling me what color I can paint my house? We're close. I heard someone steal on the zoning here not too long ago. They were worried about what somebody's gonna paint their garage doors in a storage area because they wanted their opinion. So that's what I'm thinking.
All right,
Thank you.
Don. We're still the amendment that Tom has asked for is simply removing the fencing in the backyard, okay?
That language.
That language, yes. Just removing the fencing.
Yeah, it's simple.
Okay.
It's a simple deletion of, did you
All
get
right.
it effectively screened? Did you?
Okay,
Simple.
so I have a motion and a second.
Yes, sir.
So this is a roll call vote on this motion, please.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mr. Powers?
Yes.
Mr. Lynn?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
And Mr. Welper?
Okay, that amendment passes. Now we need to vote on the ordinance itself
As amended.
as amended. A roll call, please.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mr. Powers?
Yes.
Mr. Lynn?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
Mr. Morrissey,
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
we have a motion and a second on suspending the rules. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, wait a minute, that should be a roll call.
Yeah.
Mr. Powers?
Yes.
Mr. Lynn?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
Mr.
I'd
Morrissey.
like to make a motion to consider and pass for the second and third times and adopt said ordinance.
I second.
We have a motion and a second on this, passing the second, third times. Need a roll call, please.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mr. Powers?
Yes.
Mr. Lynn?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes. Okay, that motion passes. Item number 19.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
Mr. Mayor, that will go into effect when?
That I don't know.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
I don't,
Thanks.
how soon did that go into effect?
It has to be published first, and after it's published, it'll go into effect.
Okay.
Looking probably 3 or 4 weeks, Leanne.
What's, the ordinance is written and yes, and we send it to the paper,
Sure.
I would say, at least a week.
Okay. Item 19.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
Mr. Lynn?
I move to approve change order number 5 and number 6 for a total increase of $3,460 to Lodge Construction of Clarksville, Iowa, in conjunction with Assured Recreation Area Phase 2 Improvements Project.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion?
Shouldn't we have a little overview about what the expense was?
If you like.
We always like that.
Paul?
Paul Hudding, Leisure Services Director. These are both flood-related. We're in the middle of a project to improve the area. I'd best described as the base of Green Hill Road near the river, an area that used to be housing, and we're making it into a recreation area. It was under construction when we had the flood, the second greatest flood ever of 2016 that did some damage to the trail under construction. That's part of it. Then the other part of it is to, in anticipation of continued flooding, to thicken the concrete for the proposed, or the shelter that's going to be under construction, so that should not suffer damage in future floods.
Thank you. Okay, thanks, Paul. Anyone else? Need a roll call, please.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mr. Powers?
Yes.
Mr. Lynn?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passed.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion and a second on adjournment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.